According to Pew Research Center, at least 1 million sub-Saharan Africans moved to Europe since 2010. The continuous rise of migrants from Africa to Europe will undoubtedly affect Africa's economic growth. With me today to discuss the mass exodus of Africans to Europe is Mr. Kwasu Katun John, a researcher and a PhD student in the Department of English and Literary Studies, Ahmadu Bello University. Mr. Katun, you are welcome to the program In Our World. Mr. Katun, what do you think are the factors that are leading to the massive migration of the African youth to Europe and other parts of the world?
First of all, I would like to give a historical context to the presence of blacks in the diaspora world generally. First, of course, we have the history of slavery, which was a forceful movement of blacks from Africa through the transatlantic slave trade to the West to satisfy the needs that emerged then. They needed cheap labor force to work on their farms. They needed to come to Africa to harvest our natural resources for their own good. But since the emergence of post-colonial Africa, most of the migration that we've had has been a voluntary migration. Africans have left their countries to the West as a result of the post-colonial disillusionment. And by that I mean at independence, a lot of African countries believed that the future was going to be bright. But unfortunately for them, when their own kind started ruling, they got disappointed. And in this age and time, other issues are coming up. There is the issue of the LGBT issues, who feel that they have been persecuted in most African societies, and for them to be free, they need to move to the West. Then there's the emergence of new forms of religions, and then free thinkers who feel that the African continent is hostile to their way of thinking. So they are finding ways to leave Africa to the West to save themselves from what they perceive as hostility from the African societies. So all these issues, and sometimes, of course, there's a general belief which is perpetuated on popular cultural platforms, movies, books, that the West is this site of where everything is perfect. It's a place where with little effort you'll be successful, based on what they've been shown on TV, what they've been hearing from people outside. A good example is Hush Puppy, the internet scammer who was arrested recently in Dubai for defrauding a lot of people, and in fact even the United States of America have a case against him, and even certain Premier League clubs in the UK. People like that live a fake life, a highly hypocritical life on platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, where they cajole their fellow Africans about them being lazy, and where they present to these Africans the image of their lifestyle, which for them is an example of being successful. And what do they mean by success? To be successful, it just means that you're driving the latest car in town, you're wearing the latest designers in town, you can afford the luxuries of this world, and by doing that, the narrative they are passing to hardworking Africans is that they need to come over to the West so that they can also live that life.
If that is the case, Mr. Katun, do you think this massive migration will affect the economy of Africa?
Africa has always suffered from the brain drain. Some of our best minds, some of our capable hands have left this country, especially during the military regimes. Some of our most educated citizens in Africa had to leave for the West. In the academia, for example, we had a huge amount of lecturers, a huge number of lecturers and intellectuals that had to leave the shores of this country to the West because of the perceived injustices that they experienced under military rule. We had journalists that had to flee the borders of this country because of the fact that they were persecuted. And it is not just in Nigeria. Mostly what happens in African countries are the same. In all African countries, the narrative is the same. this military government coming through unlawful processes and they persecute average citizens who, of course, it's a natural thing for you to escape to the West. So that some of our best inventors, some of our best doctors, some of our best engineers, some of our best creatives are all living in the West today. And of course, the West is the one benefiting from their intellectual capacity and capabilities. And today in Nigeria, we can only look among and wish that if they were here, things would have been better probably, and would have benefited from their intellectual prowess and all that. But since the enabling environment was not provided for them by the government of the day, which of course was the military government, things have gone bad. Another point I would like to make is that in today's context, let's not forget before the lockdown, the ASU was on strike. Most of the Nigerian universities were closed, were shut down, and there was a major disagreement that borders on staff welfare, university staff welfare, and that the federal government and ASU still couldn't come to a compromise, and the schools were forced to be closed. A lot of children are at home today, and even if the lockdown is being lifted and this horrible pandemic is over, there is no certainty that most universities in the country are going to resume work unless the federal government is able to of course listen to their plight and respond accordingly. And issues like this it's natural that if one is talented, if one is educated, if one has invested in himself to add value to himself and is not being valued in his society, it is really natural that a person will move to a place where his services, where his talent, where his vision is being appreciated. And yes, of course, it's really bad that we're losing some of our best minds to some of these countries. Let's not forget, in America, the most educated group of immigrants are Nigerians. The most educated group of immigrants are Nigerians. So out of every 10 professionals you meet in the US, it's arguably that 3 or 4 are Nigerians. So with that record, imagine a situation where we have all competent hands back to develop this country. I think would of course be one of the best countries to live in the world.
But looking at the present economic hardship in Africa, do you support the youth to migrate to Europe or other parts of the world to search for a better living?
I think it will be very difficult for me to give a clear-cut answer as to whether it is wrong or right, because of course I respect individual differences. I respect individuals' of choice of free will on what a person wants or does not want. But for me, I can give a personal opinion to these issues. I can give my own perspective on the issue of migration of blacks to the West.
Then what do you think the government should do to address this problem?
The thing the government must do is to ensure that the lives and properties of Nigerians are secured. The current wave of insecurity all over the country, of course, is a bad signal to Africans, to Nigerians. If you don't feel secured in your own country, it's natural that you want to leave. So government must prove to Nigerians that their lives matter and that criminality has no place in this nation and that their investments will be safe by fighting these criminals to wherever they are, by bringing back law and order into the country.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Kwasu Katunjon, a PhD researcher at the Department of English and Literary Studies, Ahmadu Bello University. Thank you, viewers, for giving us your time. For now, I say goodbye. I remain yours, Yusuf Musa from Concorsia Reporters TV. Thank you.